Hi, this is Borj, and as promised, I am back with the lesson Modal Auxiliaries. Are you excited to know about the difference between can, could, and be able to? Wait, are they really different? Let's talk about them today. In this lesson, you're gonna learn the difference in how to use can, could, and be able to. For those who are watching this video for the first time and they haven't watched my previous video where I discussed what auxiliaries are, well, auxiliaries are verbs in English which are used as helping verbs or which are used with an action verb or the main verb in our sentences. So once you see two verbs in one sentence, usually the first verb there is auxiliary verb or the helping verb. So previously I discussed the forms of be, the forms of do, and the forms of have as auxiliary or helping verbs. In this lesson, we're going to start discussing modal auxiliaries. To formulate verb phrases, again, we have to use can or could plus the base form of our verb. Again, the base form is the verb without es, without an ing, without ed, without s, or without d. When we're talking about ability, the first verb that we often pick first to use is the verb can. And that's actually correct because can is usually used when we want to say that we have the ability to do something, especially if as you speak, you are demonstrating that you can do something or someone else is demonstrating that they can do something. For example, I might say, my niece can dance. My niece can dance. Well, it's possible that as I speak, as I say that, my niece is currently dancing and I'm saying she can dance. If you also want to say that you know how to do something, you also use can and not be able to, not could, because we're talking about the present. I can make spaghetti. Again, I can make spaghetti. If it's in passive form, you can say this food can be preserved for 6 months. Again, this food can be preserved for 6 months. Now, when we're talking about the past abilities, we're not using can anymore, but could. Again, could is the past tense of the verb can, but this time we have an additional option, which is be able to. So when do we use could and when do we use be able to? For general abilities, we use could. For specific abilities, we use be able to. If that's confusing, let's have these as examples. She could solve math problems faster when she was in elementary. In fact, she was able to solve 10 math problems in 3 minutes. Now let's take a look at those two sentences. For the first one, I use could. Now that is a general ability. She could solve math problems faster in the past. But for the second sentence, I used was able to. She was able to solve 10 math problems in 3 minutes. I am talking about a specific event here or a specific ability, a specific thing that you did in the past. Another example for be able to give you another example for specific abilities. He was able to reserve a ticket because his mom works there. Again, he was able to reserve a ticket because his mom works there. Again, if that's an ability that almost everyone could do, that's something general, nothing specific about it, you use could if that's in the past. And if that's specific, you're talking about one specific event, you use be able to. And since this is in the past, you don't use the verb be, but you use either was or were because they are the be verb forms in the past tense. Let's talk about more instances when could is more applicable than be able to. When we're saying negative sentences, usually we use could and not be able to. When I say negative sentences, I mean to say sentences with the word not. For example, I couldn't buy the medicine because I forgot its name. I couldn't sleep because of the heavy rain last night. Again, I couldn't sleep because of the heavy rain last night. It's not usually I wasn't able to sleep. It's I couldn't sleep. Now let's talk about the use of these modal verbs with verbs of senses. When we say verbs of senses, well, it might be obvious in its name, but verbs of senses are verbs that are related to your senses, such as hear, smell, taste, feel. When we're expressing ability and we have the main verb, which is one of the verbs of senses, we use can or could and not be able to. Let's have examples. I can taste parsley in this. Did you put some? Again, I can taste parsley in this. Did you put some? I could hear footsteps in front of the house last night. This is creepy, but I could hear footsteps in front of the house last night. We have verbs taste and hear here, which are both verbs of senses, so I used can and could in two different sentences. In verbs of thinking, we use can or could, but not be able to. Verbs of thinking are verbs which are, yes, obviously related to thinking, understand, remember, believe, decide. Let's have examples. I could understand some parts of the lesson earlier, but not everything. Again, I could understand some parts of the lesson earlier, but not everything. This is one of the dilemmas of face-to-face discussions or face-to-face classes, right? We can't actually press the rewind button or the replay button if we don't understand a thing. We just ask our seatmate or our classmate, what did he say? What did she say? What did our teacher say? What did our professor say? There's nothing like replay button or rewind button if the lesson is recorded. So yeah, for the students who are coming to school for face-to-face classes this coming academic year or school year, I suggest that you listen closely so that you understand everything and write as you listen to your teacher. Let's have another example. I can't believe you traveled for 8 hours just to be with us. Again, I can't believe you traveled for 8 hours just to be with us. Now, in expressing possibility, we're not using be able to this time, but only can and could. But what's really the difference? Do we just use could in past tense? No, we can also use could if we're talking about possibilities in the present. But, well, you might have guessed already that there's a difference between can and could. Let's talk about those differences. To make things easier for you to understand, we use can if there's more possibility for something to happen, and we use could if there's less possibility for something to actually happen. Let's talk about these two sentences. We can arrive earlier if we ride my car, versus we could arrive earlier if we had a car. I want you to think of the difference between these two sentences. For the first one, it implies that I actually have a car and we can ride it, so we can arrive earlier wherever that is. For the second sentence, we don't have a car, but I'm saying I have this theory that if ever one of us had a car at that time, we could arrive earlier. Let's have another set of statements to show you the difference. We can go to the beach if you want, versus we could go to the beach if you want. Wait, what's really the difference here aside from can and could? Is there a difference in meaning? Yes, there is. For the first one, I am saying that this is a real possibility that we can really go there. It's possible for us to go there. For the second one, I doubt if we could actually go to the beach because of some reasons. Again, for the first statement, it might happen. Yes, there's a possibility. It is likely to happen. But for the second statement, it might not happen, or I doubt if we could actually do this. If you've learned conditionals, if you've watched that lesson on this channel, I said there that we use past tense of the verbs if something is impossible to happen. That is under second conditional. That's why we say if I won the lottery, not if I win the lottery, because I think it is yeah, quite impossible to happen. Or if I were you, which is impossible to happen. This time, if we're choosing between can and could, and if we're saying something is impossible to happen, we don't use, the past tense actually of the verb can, but can itself, the present one. Let me give you examples. Instead of saying this couldn't be happening, I should say this can't be happening. This can't be happening. Or you might have heard a lot of times, this can't be true. This can't be true. This is impossible to happen. This is not possible to be true. For example, someone called me and told me that someone is in the hospital. I might say, she can't be in the hospital. I left her at home. Again, she can't be in the hospital. I left her at home. I saw with my 2 eyes that she was at home when I left, so she can't be in the hospital right now. Let's talk about the last one, which is the use of can, could, and be able to when expressing permissions. Be able to and can are both used when we want to say that someone is granted permission to do something, or someone is allowed to do something. When you want to say that someone is allowed to do something in the present, you use can and be able to. But be able to is usually used when there's the word not in the sentence, meaning to say when a sentence is negative. For example, tourists are not allowed to ride a bicycle inside the museum. Again, tourists are not allowed to ride a bicycle inside the museum. They're not allowed to do something. This is a negative form. For the second one, visitors can eat by the lake. Again, visitors can eat by the lake. They are allowed to eat near the lake or around the lake. They are able or they are granted permission to do something. Now, when we're talking about positive and specific actions in the past, permissions granted in the past, we have to use was or were plus able to, meaning to say the past form of be able to. Let's have this example. On our way to our trip, my sister was allowed to ride the bus for free because she's too young. Again, on our way to our trip, my sister was allowed to ride the bus for free because she's too young. Again, she was allowed to ride the bus for free. She was granted permission to do something. And those are the uses of can, could, and be able to. If this lesson has helped you, please click the subscribe button. If you have subscribed yet, share this with other learners. I'd really appreciate that. Right there, something in the comments, use can, could, or be able to, or all of them. Dream and make your dream happen. I'll see you next time. Bye!